Over the past months, I've been working on my first ever photography zine, which has been one of the most fulfilling things I've done since I started taking photos. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I made the photography zine and just talk about why I think it's so important that everybody makes a presentation of their work that's beyond a print on a wall or a post on Instagram. All that being said, my zine is for sale right now in the description. The book consists of 52 pages of color images for my project, America's Playground. There's also a set of postcard prints you can pick up or some proper archival prints on luster paper, which look really good. That's all. Links will be in the description. I just want to give a huge thank you to everybody who supported the project, whether you've watched the videos or picked up a zine. I really appreciate it. And that being said, enjoy the video. This is how to make a photography zine. Obviously, to start, you'll need a body of work to fill your zine with. My project, America's Playground, is a collection of images I took in Coney Island over the past year. It's the perfect project because it's currently at a stage where I have a lot of images that I enjoy, but the work is also nowhere near ready to be a full photography book. That's what I love about zines. They're the perfect in-between presentation where a body of work isn't ready for a full gallery show, but it's also more than a folder on a hard drive and it needs more of a presentation. A zine doesn't have to be serious. Some of my favorite zines are handmade, small edition books that were produced on a printer at home. This zine by my friend Koji was hand printed and serves as a mini portfolio to document his work. A zine can also be a documentation of something. This zine by artist Tom Sachs is a documentation of his exhibition showcasing the art alongside the writing. And finally, this lovely zine by my friend Louis Beaver is more of a specific narrative about Paris skate culture. I think my zine is somewhere narratively in between all three of these. The design of a zine is so important in making sure that that presentation feels like it's adding to the experience of the photos as opposed to being an alternative to something like a website. I started by working physically. I printed each image that I considered a potential photograph for the zine on a small 3-inch print. After I had printed all of these and cut them all out, I brought them back home and started laying them out on my wall. Working physically makes it so much easier and more enjoyable to create a layout for your images. I started with pairings that I knew were obvious, such as portraits and specific color pairings, and from there I kind of filled in the blank spaces in between. I had this up on my wall for over 2 weeks, and it's really nice to be able to distance yourself from the work both physically and in terms of the time you spend with it, so that you get a little bit of a more unbiased opinion. On January 28th, I was reached out to by a graphic designer named Mattias. He said that he was willing to collaborate on the design of the zine, both the physical and the graphic design, which I thought was really cool. Hundreds of emails later and a couple Skype calls as well, and we ended up with a 52-page zine with some lovely graphic design. There are so many little design niches that I want to address that I didn't take into account before I started this project. The first thing is the font. This is literally the visual identity of every single word that's in your zine. Take the time to find a font that's more than something default like Arial. There's a ton of cool sites like Google Fonts that help you find free fonts that you can use on projects like this. But me and Mattias found a really cool font called, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's slightly more retro looking and I think it suits our project really well. Number 2 is the feel of the book. Paper and material choices are so important in the design of a zine. For paper, we went with a lovely light paper stock that had a ton of texture to emulate almost a newsprint style. This gave our images a ton of texture and it feels appropriate for the context of Coney Island, which is super historical, and just newsprint felt very appropriate. Because we went with such a light paper stock on the inside, we kind of went with something more rigid and structured for the outside. It's a similar feel, but it has a lot more strength, so it gives our book as a whole a little bit more structure, and I think that balance works really well. Number 3 is the features of the zine, basically what makes your zine more than the standard shape of a book. There are a couple customizations we did to our zine, including these lovely fold-out pages that allow us to have a print that's physically bigger than the zine. These kinds of things can really drive up the price, but if you work with your printers, there's always cool things that you can add to make your zine more than just a standard book. When you're doing stuff like this, you really have to find a printer who works well for you, who's able to work around the things that you want to add to your book. I recommend you work locally. I went down to some local printers here in New York City to check out prices and get quotes on paper stocks and stuff like that, but unfortunately everything here was a little expensive, so we ended up outsourcing our printing to Europe. I recommend you quote a ton of places because the printers that I'm using aren't necessarily the best for your application. Finally, there's the packaging, and because our printing was outsourced and I couldn't be very hands-on with that, I wanted the packaging to be something I could do myself, so we went for this vacuum sealed option. It's cheap, but it also adds a little bit of a premium feel to the zine. And in addition to that, it also just protects the zine really well for shipping, which is cool. How did that look? I just got this new light right here. I also put up that seamless. I want to say thank you to everybody who supported this project. Whether you've picked up a zine or you've just watched the Coney Island videos, it's been really cool working on this project. It's definitely something I'll keep working on in the future. Maybe not so much on this channel, but it's definitely just a project I want to keep pursuing. Also, make sure you give Mattias a follow on Instagram. He's an incredible designer, but also an incredible photographer. And I'm a huge fan of graphic design influenced photography. And yeah, he's really dope. My Instagram will also be in the description. That's it for this video. Peace.